And they chose the sample or representative bullets. I did not choose them.
I'm waiving my objection to all this, Your Honor. Obviously, totally and completely improper. He's given a summation to the jury, but I'm waiving the objection. Thank you, Your Honor. Let's Cyril enjoy himself.
Disregard the remark. Let's go.
Let me ask you, did you check the autopsy that was produced in this case, the autopsy proceeding, and what they did at the autopsy?
Yes.
What did you find?
One of the most incomplete, superficial, inadequate, inept, forensic pathologically incompetent medical legal autopsies I've ever seen.
Explain why.
The autopsy, for example, measures the locations of the wounds in relationship to other anatomic landmarks instead of relating them, as we always do, to the top of the head and the midline of the body. The brain subsequently was not fully examined. Various organs were not commented upon. The entire description was quite meager.
All right. When you were called upon as a part of the committee that Dr. Petty was involved with to make your determinations, was the necessary evidence presented to you by the government for you to do that? For example, was the brain there?
No. That's the
Do you
brain.
need the brain?
Yes. The head wounds, you would need the brain.
Why?
Because you would have to use your eyes and other measuring devices for determination of bullet wound characteristics in different parts of the body. So would it be the same with regard to the brain? In this case, even more so, because the brain was not examined at the time of the autopsy. It was fixed in formalin, which was a proper thing to do. But 2 weeks later, on December 6th, in the supplemental examination, they did not then section the brain in stepwise fashion to examine it. They said that in order to preserve the specimen, they were not going to do that. So the brain was never examined in this case.
So they told you it was put in formalin?
That's what they said in their report.
They said it was preserved?
Yes.
And then when you asked for it, were you provided the brain?
No, the brain is not available.
Did you look for the brain?
Oh, I had looked for it many times in many ways before, and the panel again had asked about it. It was not available. Do you have an opinion as to what occurred in the Zapruder film when the president is lurched back? Are we permitted to believe what we see there? Well, it'll be up to the court and the jury. The film Zapruder 313 shows the president being driven backward and to the left with substantial force at the moment of impact with the head wound.
What do you consider that force to have been caused by?
By a gunshot wound.
From which direction?
Well, the directionality in terms of the movement would be most consistent with a shot from the right side.
Show the jury with your finger.
If I am President Kennedy and I am moving down Elm Street and I'm shot in the head with a high-speed velocity long gun, and I go backward and to the left like this, that is most consistent with a force of substantial nature coming in from the right side, the jury being in that area of the right side.
Would that be
driving me backwards?
Would that be consistent with a shot coming from the grassy knoll?
Yes, it would be.
You may examine.
Cyril, I respect you. You know, you've got a pretty good background, don't you?
Spent a lot of years in school.
But you're known as the darling of the conspiracy buffs in this country, aren't you?
Please, that's
Oh, wait a minute. You asked him to give a summation to the jury, and I can't ask him if he's a darling?
Please, I asked him for his testimony, Your Honor, and I think that that's demeaning of a witness of this character.
Asking if he's a member of a particular committee. Sustain as to the darling
Doctor, even though from a professional perspective you don't think too much of the autopsy surgeons, you do agree 100% with their findings, to wit, that the bullet wound to the president's upper right back and the bullet wound to the back of the president's head were both entry wounds, not exit wounds, and hence the bullets were fired from the rear. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, let's go on to the next question now. No final summation. I'm going to be doing that. Was it just accidental on their part that they came to the same identical conclusion you came to?
That's not the same identical conclusion.
Okay.
That's just a part.
Dr. Wecht, in a 1974 article for Forensic Science, page 128, did you say this? So far as the available medical evidence shows, all shots were fired from the rear. No support can be found for theories which postulate gunmen to the front or right front of the presidential car. Did you write those words, Doctor?
Yes, exactly. Okay. Available medical evidence.
All
That's
right.
the phrase,
Let's
Mr.
go on to other
Bugliosi.
questions.
Available medical evidence.
He'll have some opportunity on redirect. Just answer my questions.
You know, I think he is, and I don't think he's being fair with this witness, Your Honor. Somehow, when he gives an answer that he doesn't like, then he admonishes the witness and scolds him. And I think a witness ought to be able to answer without being scolded by
Objection's
Mr.
overruled.
Bugliosi.
I think Dr. Wecht's handling himself all right.
I think he's doing all right, too. Thank you.
As far as the brain, Doctor, you're well aware, are you not, that after interviewing or taking depositions from over 30 people close to the matter, the House Select Committee that you were on, the investigators concluded that the president's brother, Robert Kennedy, who had told people he feared his brother's brain might conceivably be placed on public display years from now, they came to the conclusion that it was he who was responsible for the disappearance of his brother's brain. You're aware of that? That's the conclusion of the House Select Committee investigators.
They suggested it.
Okay. But I take it you don't accept this possibility.
I have no way of knowing.
Well, you kind of smell a rat here, don't you?
I have no way of knowing.
All right, let's go on. The head snap to the rear, Doctor. I believe you testified that that bullet could have come from the front. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Right side I prefer, Mr. Bugliosi.
You prefer?
Right side.
Yeah, but that's not Mr. He's not happy with
Oh,
that.
no, he did say right side, and I said right side, and he said grassy knoll, and I said yes, that's the right side.
But you want him to go home happy, don't you?
Oh, please.
And he's talking about the grassy
I have no
knoll.
relationship to Mr.
Okay.
Spence.
That's so bad.
Jury will disregard that.
So awful bad.
Okay, but the grassy knoll's to the right front.
Somewhat to the front, more to the side.
Okay. Well, Doctor, since you agree that there is no medical evidence of a bullet striking President Kennedy from the front, or right front, no medical evidence, to what do you attribute the head snap to the rear, then? There's no
I said, as you asked me before, Mr. Bugliosi, that the medical evidence available, I'll repeat for you, sir, that the left side of the brain was never opened, was never sectioned. So we don't know what was there. The great majority of the metal fragments inside the brain were never tested. Indeed, the large piece that was embedded in the bone in the back and a fairly substantial piece embedded toward the frontal part of the skull, those two were not removed and were not tested. So we don't know a lot of things about what happened because of the incompleteness of the examination and the unavailability of the evidence.
Do you believe that the two bullets that struck President Kennedy from behind were not fired from the southeasternmost window of the 6th floor, but from a lower floor?
My own analysis, as set forth in an article published, I think, in 1974, indicated that if the shots came from behind, and I believe that they had, that at least one of the shots would have been more likely to have come from around the 2nd floor of the Texas School Book Depository building and more down toward the other end of the building. That was my own analysis.
All right. Taking a look at this chart right here, Cyril.
Your Honor, I don't mean to be picky, but somehow it seems to me that during the course of this trial, we have always tried to show respect for people. And wouldn't it be proper for doctors to be called
Address him as Dr. Wecht.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Doctor.
All right.
Now, Doctor, if the bullet was coming on a downward path as it entered the presidential limousine, as you say it was, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And it missed Governor Connolly. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why didn't it hit the driver of the car or do any damage to the car, Doctor?
A couple of things. The straight line in that open limousine could have taken it out over the left side of the car.
No.
And as the line shows, it would have and could have indeed missed the driver. Secondly,
wait, it's coming on a downward path, Cyril. I mean,
Wait.
doctor, I'm sorry. He's coming on a downward path into the presidential limousine, goes through the president's body, misses Governor Connolly, and magically also misses the driver and doesn't do any damage to the presidential limousine.
Wait just a moment.